You take the roll.
Yes, of course. Carol Goodman,
Here.
Stephen Sousa,
Here.
Steve Hyken,
Here.
Michael Roper,
Here.
Bernard Green.
Here.
Okay, and I'm
Okay.
Maria Morelli, Senior Planner.
Okay, so let's get started. We have not a greatly detailed meeting, but there's some important things to discuss. You want to start off with your slide deck, Maria?
Sure. I did send minutes for 2 meetings, November 10th and December 8th. And I just wanted to know if anyone had any comments.
Okay, that's not on the agenda.
It's old business. So,
Okay. Anyone have any comments to the meetings? Minutes?
I don't know when they came out. I don't remember seeing them. Maybe I missed them.
Okay.
Sorry.
all right. Do you
Why
want
don't
to?
we put them off to
We'll
another?
put them, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Next week. Okay.
They weren't in the agenda package either, so.
You're right. They weren't posted on in the agenda packet, but I did forward them to you. But we'll do that next week. No
Okay.
problem. All right. I'm going to share my screen so that we can just go over a few things.
And by the way, if I'm not, if I turn off my video, it's not that I'm being rude, it's I'm eating dinner. We have to do that sometimes.
Absolutely. So I am just going to make a full screen here. Okay. All right. I just want to go through some next steps, and I'd like to look at the next 3 or 4 months or so that you can get oriented and really understand some expectations. Things are going to get busier for the committee. And I'd like to just help you manage some expectations of the upcoming events. The first, obviously, is the acceptance of the state grant. The state did award us a grant, but it has to be formally accepted by the select board, and the contract needs to be executed. It was on the agenda for the select board for tomorrow evening, and there were a few folks who looked at the contract and saw a line there that said there was going to be a focus on housing. And that was concerning because it seemed to suggest that no other uses would really be explored, and that we would be paying lip service to these other uses and really just making this a housing project. And that's not the case. So I just want to remind you, and I actually have a slide that actually gets into that. So maybe I should just go through this list, and then I'll return to the contract here just to assure people what that means. Putting it off 2 weeks means that we get to really clear the air, communicate a little bit more closely with people to explain, why it was constructed that way and what the expectations are. There is no limitation on what this committee recommends, or what the ultimate outcome plans are for that site. But let's get back to our schedule.
And by the way, if I may add,
Yes.
town council has looked at this and agrees that the language does not lock us into anything other than what we've been expecting to do at the site, and that is come up with some uses that may include housing, but is not necessarily limited to that.
Thank you very much for adding that, Bernard. So a few things that I would like to do. This obviously is someone's neighborhood. So before things get a little bit too more public and more formal, I think it's good for us to have informal meetings with the Precinct 14 town meeting members, the abutters, the neighborhood association that serves this area, and really just with 2 or 3 people from the committee, just talk to them about what is expected, what upcoming events look like, what's the purpose of all of this, and give them, just a quiet forum where they can ask questions. Sometimes people can get a little upset when they hear different uses. It could be when they hear pool, or when they hear housing, or when they hear municipal uses. It's a very, relatively quiet neighborhood. So we want people to understand this is not a proposal or a proposed development, but this is an opportunity for them to be in part of really an expansive process. And looking at impacts are certainly going to be factors that get looked at and considered by this committee and the greater community. Another aspect of community engagement is I really took your advice seriously when you looked at the RFP and felt, gee, it was a very overwhelming list of tasks for a potential consultant to see all the different community groups, and maybe we could simplify that. So what I'm doing is I'm really just taking a page out of the comp planning, which is really identifying community group ambassadors, where the committee and staff can work a little bit more closely in the smaller groups, again, with data-driven tools, because that's really important to have data-driven results, but to really bring this down to perhaps like a more community group scale, where the consultant can work on bigger, large group presentations, create the surveys and the facilitation questions that we would be using. But we can also, by having ambassadors, we can really assure people that no one's going to get left out. I have to say that I'm getting over a cold, so I apologize if my voice gets a little weak. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so moving on, we see in February, if we give after the select board accepts the grant, within that week, certainly no later than a week, we would send out the request for proposal for the site planning consultant and the shuttle micro transit consultant. We can't send an RFP out until that contract is formally executed. At this time, there will be a press release announcing the grant's acceptance, what this is all about, and how people can get involved. In March, I would expect responses to that RFP due. The steering committee, and I'll show you a slide that shows like who is on that committee. This entire committee certainly is. Reviewing the submittals, conducting interviews, hiring the winning bid, and then sending out communiques to town meeting, boards, community groups, etc., announcing who won the bid and what the upcoming events might be. There is going to be, excuse me, a pre-planning phase where the consultant has to provide a work plan, a community engagement plan, a report on existing conditions. You will be looking at the survey questions that they're preparing, helping them prepare that first large group public meeting to begin phase one, the community visioning. So that's really the big kickoff is in April, when we have a presentation from the consultant about what to expect, how to get involved, and what community engagement, which is the crux of phase one. Okay. All right. Any questions here? I'm just going to move on. Oh, Marilyn is here. Great.
Maria,
Okay.
what are you
Yes.
thinking, or who are you thinking of with respect to this community group ambassadors? Are you talking about members of this committee, or?
No, community group ambassadors would be people from different constituency, like the outdoor pool folks, the seniors, neighborhood groups. Like there could be someone from the BNA, and so forth. There are different constituency groups. Like you saw that long list.
Right.
Yeah, that's really what I'm thinking of. Just kind of volunteers from those groups who can be a communication channel with this committee and staff.
Okay.
The consultant selection committee, who's going to be hiring the consultant, the site planning consultant. All members of this committee, plus George Cole, who's a real estate professional. He's a real estate development professional, works for Leggett McCall. He's an architect. He's a member of the Brookline Building Commission, economic development. He's really very finance development focused, manages really large projects, and can be really a helpful skill set as an adjunct to this committee. Charlie Simmons, who's the director of public buildings, that's really pretty obvious. Kara and myself. Any questions about this selection committee? Okay. All right. So for folks who were a little concerned about what we're scoping out, now this is due diligence, which means we want to anticipate questions that might come from advisory committee or the building commission, the finance department, and certainly anticipate some of the ideas that we think people are going to suggest or wonder about. Obviously, the intergenerational recreation center is one. The outdoor pool complex, that's obvious. We're not going to wait for people to raise their hand and offer that. We're just going to get ahead of that. And that really helps us when we are trying to get a bid from a consultant to manage expectations and manage this budget wisely. The housing program. My next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about why we have this in here. I understand people are concerned because this doesn't look like municipal uses, but there is a good reason for having it sliced and diced this way. The next category would be combined uses activities, whether it's residential and municipal, because again, some people are wondering, hey, can't we just split it up? We don't know what that looks like. So exploring it doesn't mean it's a recommendation. It doesn't mean that you're favoring one over the other or there's an inside agenda. We have to scope it out to show people what works and what doesn't. We might be surprised. And then a mix of municipal use is kind of going from small, medium to large in terms of intensity of use. And intensity of use can mean a number of things: scale, a number of people, traffic, etc. Some folks are interested in preservation of West Hall. We're looking at that through like the housing option, but also through like a municipal use. And then also leaving a bit of a padding for community ideas we haven't thought of. I hope this covers most of what we think people will talk about, but we also need to have a little bit of a ceiling. And we've gone through this, but I think I can get to, I just wanted to use
I
this.
have a question just about your wording on the preceding page on A, sample combination might be, under D, number 2A. I don't understand. I understand A and B is a combination. Then you say A or B plus D. Oh, so A plus
Yeah.
D and B plus D. Okay.
Right.
Okay. A. Okay. So you might want to just write A plus D, B plus D. It would clarify, but that's fine. I understand it. Sorry.
Nope, no, I want you to ask. Okay, so a few things, just wanted to, I feel like the committee probably knows this, but members of the committee who are excuse me, of the public who are joining us really care about any concerns that you have about terms that we use and what it means to accept this grant. So Brookline is a housing choice community. You did a great job with the MBTA communities responding to that. It's because you are eligible, because you are a housing choice community, you're eligible for a rich array of grants. This particular grant is at the nexus of, and this is from the state, the nexus of housing, community development, transit, infrastructure, transportation, commercial development, all of that, which means you can do anything like community development, transit. It happens to be surrounded by housing, and that is a big piece. So by going for this grant, you absolutely are not limited to a housing recommendation or housing development. But there's a reason why looking at housing is important. So you've seen the scope of work. You know that what we are sending out includes pools, recreation center, whole slew of uses. The grant that I wrote particularly to the state has all of these things: recreation, shuttle, potentially housing. That's because we don't know. We're exploring, and that's what we've made clear. So we're being very honest with the state. In the packet to the select board doesn't see my application. They just get the one line description that says housing's at the nexus. And that's really consistent with the description of the grant that the state is giving out. That's really all it is. We're just repeating back what the state says housing is at the nexus, at the center. Okay. Now, housing, we're not playing fast and loose with the state either. Housing is in this exploration for a good reason. One, I expect people, members of the community, to suggest it. So let's get ahead of it. It's something that people are going to suggest. I don't think anyone in this committee is going to discount it. Land disposition is part of your charge. That's because private development might be necessary to make a municipal project work. And in that case, the building commission, imagine in the finance department, is going to want to know what the value of the land is, if part of it or even all of it needs to be sold. Keep in mind, it's not just about defraying cost. We don't know if some of the options that people really support, financial feasibility indicates that you might need an override. So these are all the kinds of questions people are going to ask. Your report has to be really good because you are the due diligence. You're going to be serving a lot of people who are scrutinizing this and these questions and your recommendations. And the other thing I just want to say that if somebody just has in their mind, oh, it's really easy to have, housing plus, a pool, or housing plus a rec center, unless you're actually scoping it out, unless you're actually working out the test fits, thinking about the parking needs, we really don't know. And so someone might have a great idea and try to voice that idea through like a resolution or something at town meeting. You want to have done that due diligence. And the other thing is that this site is not it's not central to where you have most of your population, which is in North Brookline. A lot of those people don't necessarily have a car or 2 cars per household. So the shuttle itself, the fact that we are even spending a third of this money on a shuttle services model and cost means that we're making a commitment to giving municipal uses a chance to be successful operationally at this site, which is not accessible to the wider town community. And this is really, I've talked to so many different town departments who said, how will people get there? If we don't have enough people enjoying these programs, we're not going to be able to sustain programming or justify having our programs at this site. And then I again want to say that there are a lot of community groups. I feel very lucky to work in a community where people get involved and are so passionate. And I want you to know the way we're designing this process with this committee, which is a great committee, is to bring people together and not leave anyone out and not play favorites. So there's no preferences. This is truly a due diligence exercise. And I think where people really can put their energy is how they can collaborate with others and rally around something that is good for as many demographics as possible. And I think my last slide is, I want to really focus on the committee's role and how we can work together on really community engagement. So this is a big part of this work. And I'm glad that we'll be able to get professional assistance from the consultant that we hire. So specifically around community engagement, January and February, once the select board accepts the contract, we will have a press release with a quote from Bernard. I'd like to organize some informational, it looks like somebody wants to come in, informational sessions with this precinct, just really to get ahead of the press release and not make people feel as though they heard about it only through the press, the media. Have some small group sessions with some of you who live in the area, with Precinct 14, town meeting members. I'd like to have the town meeting members meeting first, because I feel like they should enjoy a session where they can get up to speed before their constituents do, and then just really keep it informal. Talk to them about some concerns they might have when they hear housing or outdoor pool or municipal uses. A lot of those things might sound very overwhelming. So we want to talk to them about what this all means. Work a little bit more on naming those ambassadors for the different community groups. And then we're going to really overhaul the webpage to make it much more user-friendly. And then work with Christina Metcalf, who is the communications officer for the town, on really doing a thorough job with social media, the administrator's newsletter. In March and April, this of course would be after the consultant is hired. There would be communiques to town meeting members and boards and community groups. You're going to be working with the consultant to review that community engagement plan, the substance of the tools and the surveys that they outline. And then we're going to prepare with you. We're going to prepare for the large group, a visioning kickoff. And then of course there's the attended social media and so forth. So I've talked to Christina Metcalf, who's going to be a great, like our right hand in helping us with that piece. So that is pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else for me to say. I'm going to stop sharing. And any comments at all about what I went over? Carol?
Precinct 13 is very close to this property. So I'm wondering, and I tried to get a map. I couldn't pull one up, but I see the addresses of the town meeting members is very close, like a block or two away. So I'm wondering if you thought about maybe inviting those town meeting members as well.
That's a great idea, Carol. Absolutely. Wonderful idea. Okay, Steve, you have your hand up?
Yeah, on the shuttle study, that's a separate study. Are we also monitoring that work at all, or is that being done by?
Yep, so that one, you are going to have a kind of a dotted line to that. So anything that comes up out of this committee in terms of uses would be helpful for the shuttle consultant to know. Primarily, I'm putting it in the transportation division.
Mhm.
I'm kind of giving it, kind of putting it under their purview, but just having a dotted line to this committee. So number one, you'd be getting like some data, you'd know with or without a shuttle, how does that affect participation rates and programs?
Okay, what I'm actually wondering about with respect, I haven't looked at the shuttle RFP, if there even is one done yet, but there are other town uses that clearly either already have or could benefit from a shuttle, like the senior center and the teen center. I think the teen center finally has gotten some form of shuttle, but is the shuttle study going to look at serving not just this Fisher Hill site, but other community uses and locations in town, you know, in whatever kind of a loop or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm so glad that you
not
brought
just
that up.
focused on this site and getting.
Absolutely not. No, in fact, it was the Fisher Hill, the fact that Fisher Hill is kind of remote. It's really the catalyst for a shuttle, a town-wide shuttle that's not just about looping to Fisher Hill and back to like other points, but really trying to maybe have some efficiencies with recreation, teen center, and senior center. I can tell you, I've worked a little bit with Watertown just to understand what they're doing with their micro transit. And they got like a model to have something that was maybe curb to curb for seniors and people with disabilities, and then have a more general use shuttle service, which had like fixed locations.
Well,
So,
I mean, I'm particularly sort of the teen from the teen center perspective. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like a few blocks from my house, and it's in North Brookline, and it's across the
totally,
street
yeah,
from school. But
yep.
kids from South Brookline, not so easy to get there. And so
Not so
I do
easy.
believe
Exactly.
Bobby Zucker has donated a shuttle bus, but
Yes.
I don't. But integrating that, I'm glad
Yes,
that the studies.
that's really at the heart of the shuttle, that it would really be truly a town-wide shuttle. And we'd have to understand, you know, what the different models are and what the costs would be for different models. Yes.
And Maria, is the transportation study going to occur after the other study, or
So as much as possible, it'll be done concurrently. It's kind of not the same kind of, there is some community engagement, but this is really about getting models. And, really, it's about having them help us identify need and coming up with the different service models and operations models that are out there that exist for this type of work. So it's not about designing it specifically to a T, but getting some idea about what the service and operation models look like and those costs. Is that helpful, Bernard?
Yeah, no, that's what I was asking.
Yep. I think also that shuttle service, there'll be kind of like feedback loops in between this project and the other, so that we can get a better idea of what like the service area needed to be. And in turn, you folks would get to know how many people wouldn't participate in programming if there weren't a shuttle. So I think it's good to know what the demand is. Anything about the community engagement and the approach for working with the smaller groups, you folks who live in the area?
Yeah, Maria, I think that it's, I understand what you're trying to do with the ambassador, but I mean, that would assume that each of these groups has selected an ambassador, right? And so I think that from the, I think personally that the focus should be on the medium by which we communicate.
Okay.
And so we had looked at that the last meeting and said, okay, there's an enormous amount of these groups. We don't want to miss anybody.
Yep.
A consultant looking at this obviously would hopefully have the experience of doing a similar type of approach and come up with 4 or 5 different vehicles or mechanisms by which we can communicate with folks.
For sure.
And then that would be what we focus them on.
Absolutely. And I thank you for getting me to clarify. That's the gold standard here.
Okay.
So ambassadors don't replace any of this stuff. This is really more of the community building. Sometimes you need face-to-face with some community groups because they get a little insecure. And I think kind of what happened this past week where we had to delay, take something off the select board agenda was just a reminder to me that even though I think I'm communicating with people, if they don't feel secure, if we don't have like a kind of like a little one-on-one, these flare-ups can happen. So that's just really like, it's an added layer of trust building, I guess you might say. Okay.
Any other questions on this community engagement and next steps?
Just to finish that thought, Maria, I do agree with you though, that I think that the sooner we get in front of some of those, local groups that we can, it's good practice, so to speak, to how that's going to be received and how when we go to scale that we'll be better prepared for it. So whatever you need from me, or I won't speak for Marilyn, but certainly, here to help if I can.
That would be ideal. So I figure Carol, Marilyn, and Michael, I think we can have like 2 to 3 people and not have a quorum. Certainly not trying to burden the same combination of people, but would love to work with you and I'll offline maybe set up some dates, and I'll send out and work with you on invitations. Okay. I think.
Yeah, by the way, I think you want to just be careful that
Yes.
even though it's just a working group and is not making any, doing any deliberations, we just want to make sure that any ideas that come up with are only ideas that the broader committee can act on or, deliberate on.
Yeah, I will also talk to town council. I meant this to be more of a Q&A, just to really just explain to people what the process is about and have them ask questions.
It's just best in this environment to make sure we have clear direction from town council. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Any other discussion?
You're concerned about open meeting law issues with respect to what you're just talking about?
Yeah. And the role of working groups. and, you know, limitations as well as the opportunities that working groups provide to a committee like this.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
came up
I-
in the context of the Pierce Building Committee, for
Hmm.
example.
I wasn't going to even call it a working group. It was just really more of a listening session for the abutters. But I will definitely talk to town council about what to avoid. Maybe I need like one person and not up to three. So I will for sure talk to town council. All right. Any other questions? I'm not sure if members of the public have comments or questions.
Well, let's get all questions out from the committee.
Sure.
And then I think we have time to open up to public input. Nothing else from the committee?
Oh, I think
Julie,
Maria
under-
did a great job organizing our thinking and presenting it, so thank you. It's
Yeah,
very
thank
well done.
you.
Thank you. You've been very helpful to me. So I really appreciate your feedback and your candor.
Okay, why don't we, we don't have any other business.
No.
No?
not
Okay,
tonight.
so let's see if there are any comments or questions from the public. Please raise your hand if you have a question or comment, or you know, raise your hand through the Zoom raise your hand feature, or just, I guess that's all you can do. Or turn on your video and manually raise your hand.
For those that don't know how to raise their hand on Zoom, there's a react little heart at the bottom. First, you have to click react, and then it gives you the opportunity to raise your hand.
I think this is an experienced
Maybe.
group. I just think
Small
people
number
might
of
not
members
have
of the public.
comments,
Oh,
but
yeah, they probably are well aware of
Yeah.
this.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't see any hands raised. So unless there's anything else, we can end this meeting.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Happy
Bye.
New Year,
Thanks.
everyone.
Happy
Good
New
night.
Year.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.